If you enjoy the Totally Unreal Book Club podcast, please help support us and the show by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating and review. You might also consider helping out financially at patreon.com/tubcpodcast. That's TUBC podcast. Welcome to the Totally Unreal Book Club podcast, or TUBC for short. This podcast is in association with and comprised of the Voices of Anarchy Improv comedy group, and we are here to discuss our favorite totally unreal books, movies, video games, etc. on a weekly basis. This book club is totally unreal. I'm your host, Willwood, and today we have, starting to my left, Caitlin Dawkins.
Writing with a broken pencil is pointless.
Dahi English.
This is a cool quip.
Steve Marriott.
Parachute pants will not help you if you jump out of a plane.
And before we get started with today's review, I just want to ask everybody, what media have you been consuming this week?
I've been pretty much running Netflix dry of all their horror movies. I watch a lot of scary movies, and I love them, but I'm running through all the good ones, so if you have any good suggestions, I'm all ears.
Well, I actually have a really, really good suggestion, and that is to just watch all of the terrible horror movies on Netflix. I think that's a really, really fun experience.
I've done that already, too.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, okay.
I'm not going to lie, Three-Headed Shark Attack was a lot worse than Two-Headed Shark Attack.
There's a website that has a list of the worst horror movies on Netflix based on how quickly people turn them off.
Good to know. I think I will probably check
that out as a challenge, see how far you can get into it.
Yeah. Normally, if I start a movie, I'm committed, unfortunately.
Teeth.
Teeth, indeed.
It's a movie. It's a horror movie.
I was like, yeah, most shark movies have teeth.
No, it's
two words for you.
Vagina dentata.
Vagina dentata.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have it on DVD if you would like to borrow it.
I'm good.
It's really funny.
I think it's on Netflix. That's where I saw it. Anyway.
Good to know.
It's hilarious, actually.
I started Ni no Kuni 2 on PS4, and it's f***ing awesome.
You said a bad word.
Video games are... actually... I've just started the first one myself, just played a little bit of it, and I think that one is a beautiful game as well.
It is, but Ni no Kuni 2 will blow the beauty of that game out of the beautiful lake of water.
As they say.
Oh, yeah. You better show that to me then, once we're
I will.
this.
Got that HDR 4K,
Yeah.
60 FPS.
Oh.
On a console, that's right.
I've been playing...
Console
and
Peasant Master Race.
Will as well. We've been playing a little bit of PUBG on mobile. It's not bad.
And still working our way through Final Fantasy VII.
And I'm still playing Borderlands 2.
And Caitlin started watching the original Dragon Ball Z.
Yep.
So are we going to veer off into our Dragon Ball Z discussion then?
Dragon Ball, no. Let's move on.
I'm very confused right now. This must have been from an episode I wasn't here for.
No, it wasn't.
There was one episode where, yeah, it was. It was from an episode you weren't here for.
I'm gaslighting him.
Oh. You know what's funny about gaslighting is that I only just last year learned that what that meant, like with the gas lamp and everything. I thought it was a driving term. It like referred to like if you were in somebody with a car and then you were
in
stop.
somebody?
With a car.
If you were with somebody in a car and then you were like at like a red light, but you like drove through the light because you were gaslighting because you put your foot on the gas through the light.
Like Back to the Future.
Or I also thought maybe it referred to like when the gas light comes on that says you need more gas.
Oh my God.
I didn't understand why they use driving terms to like talk about making somebody think that they're crazy, although I'm not sure that I knew gaslighting meant you were making somebody think they were crazy. But the other reason why I may have thought that is because I think anytime anybody has ever said that I'm gaslighting them, we've been in a car.
Okay, so I've actually got a book recommendation for you. It's called The Dictionary. You should pick it up sometime.
Who wrote that one? Webster, I believe his name was. Yeah.
I heard it was a guy named Miriam. Anyway, let's do our thing that we do.
We do stuff.
Which is to review a book for you, you being the audience. And that book today is by a guy in this podcast with us named...
You wrote it?
I did not write the book. No, I just chose the book that you guys all read. You should know this
I was getting
better.
to that, but you cut me off. Stop gaslighting me.
No, what it means.
I know what it means now. And we're not
even in a car.
Well, they don't know that. I'm sure most people listening to this are in a car. So I hope you're not being gaslit right now. And if you
Please
are,
don't go
please
through
stop
red
at a
light.
gas station and fill up so that you stop being gaslit.
Don't do it.
Oh my goodness.
What's your book, Steve? Hurry up.
You know the book. You've read it. So this is the book. It's called Yaksin, Miami by Francis Richardson. And it's a true story of a young man who was traveling. And when he got to Nepal, he spent some time at a monastery with a bunch of monks.
Yeah.
And
the young
they
man Yaksin.
No, Francis. Like, he wrote the book. Yaksin was his, like, friend that was there, but Francis, it's his autobiography.
Yes, that's why, but that's what I'm saying. Yaksin is his name. Yaksin, first name Yaksin, last name Miami. Yaksin, Miami.
I must have missed that one, but that makes sense. Yeah. It's about how there's these
Because it's not a biography about Yaksin, Miami.
No, it's
Written by someone else.
written by Francis Richardson. How there was these endangered species of yaks in the monastery, and he decided to take them to his uncle's sanctuary in Miami, and it's the story of their travel to get there.
Yes. But the name he uses for himself in the book, because even though it's an autobiography, he still gives himself a pseudonym, and that pseudonym is
Yaksin.
Yaksin, Miami.
exactly. Stop confusing the audience.
Sorry, don't know what I was thinking.
It's both. It's a double entendre.
You see, I've only seen the title of the book written down, so I thought it was just Jackson, Miami. But
Really?
yeah,
Because it's spelled like YAKS space IN space Miami.
I'm aware. I just read it wrong.
Okay. It's the book title works on 2 levels and no more.
Yeah, no more. Yeah, I found it to be a very inspirational book, telling all of his exploits and all the people he met along the way, and of course his relationship with his uncle.
Sheepson.
Yeah. Sheepson, yes. And of course his favorite yak, Gertrude.
My cat is here. She has something to say.
Yeah.
She didn't read the book. She can't contribute.
Oh, she's feeling a little shy now she's on mic.
Meow. Just kidding. That was not the cat.
She doesn't want to contribute.
She won't speak. Okay. Yes. Sheepson and Yaksin.
Sheepson and Yaksin.
In Miami.
In Miami. Yeah. So what did you guys think? You liked it?
Yes.
It took me a little while to get into it. I found it was a little like description heavy at the beginning, and the action
I
didn't
hate
take
when
off.
books describe things to me.
Well, it was a little excessive in the descriptions, like a full page to talk about the path that takes them up to the monastery. I was like, just get to the monastery.
Yaksin Road.
Get to the interesting things.
Well, I think it was an exercise in like memory, in trying to remember every little detail about his life. It was I think that was the point. It was just more of an exercise for him to remember exactly what was going on in his past.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I just found I wasn't that interested in it to begin with. Like it took me a couple chapters to really get involved. If I wasn't reading this for the book club, I may have stopped reading, but then
Fair
it
enough.
really got good. So
Well, a big part of that was probably because there was no dialogue between him and the other monks due to their vow of silence.
Hence the descriptions.
Hence the descriptions, yes.
Because it just went into painstaking detail of how they like tried to communicate without words or gestures.
Or gestures.
Yeah.
they took a vow of stillness as well.
And so, it was like, But they were allowed to draw. Not write, but they could draw.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mean game of spiritual Pictionary.
Very true. Well, I found it interesting that Francis was even tempted to become a monk for a while. Or sorry, Yaksin.
Well, yeah, I just want to address that because it's confusing. Because the author was Francis, and it's about him, but he calls himself Yaksin in the book.
Right. That's probably
so.
If we could
just refer to Francis as when we're talking about him as the author, and Yaksin when we're talking about him as the author, which is a character, that would be less confusing for me.
For everybody involved, I'm sure. But yeah, when Yaksin was in the monastery and he like almost became a monk himself.
Well, let's not get too spoilery here.
That's true.
I mean, that's pretty early in the book, but
that's before they even left on their trek.
Yeah, it was less trekking.
Less trekking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he was very descriptive at the start because it started out just like as a travel journal about his travels all through Nepal and everywhere else that he went on his trip. And then when he met the monks in the monastery and decided to like do something a little more meaningful with his trip, it was very interesting.
Yes. I like that it takes place in the 1800s.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess that author is long dead then.
No. It was like...
It was loosely autobiographical. Like he took it to a new set. Francis took it to a new setting, but the sort of the gist of the story
and called himself Yaksin.
The gist of the story was true, based on true story.
I mean, you can only call it an autobiography in the sense that you can call it that.
Well, Francis really did travel to Nepal.
These are all his real, life stories. He just changed slight events a little bit, changed the time setting, and called himself
200
Yaksin.
years.
Yeah. Very true.
And Miami was very different in the 1800s.
So I hear.
It was called Miami at that point.
It was still coastal though.
Yeah. But I mean,
it wasn't Pangea.
No. Well, they almost ended up in Jacksonville, but they decided to go to Miami instead.
Mississippi, right?
Jacksonville? No, it's just Yaksin, Mississippi. There's Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Pretty sure.
I'm not up to snuff on my American geography, I guess.
I am a geography major.
I didn't read the book.
God damn it, Will.
I was wondering.
Had one job.
I did read the back cover.
What did the back cover say?
Hold on, let me go grab it.
Here, you can have my copy.
Oh, thank you. Hey, travelers. Do you like roads? Do you like roads?
And rogues?
No, it doesn't say rogues. Be serious. Hey, travelers, do you like roads? Well, then come along on... Are you guys okay? Hey, travelers, do you like roads? Well, then come along on this journey through the 1800s to Jacksonville, Florida, where you will follow the author of this book under a pseudonym, and you will enjoy it. But it's a boring book, so be in for a treat.
You know, it's weird that it said that on the back of the book. Because
I'm just kidding. I didn't read the back of the book either. Caitlin handed me her copy, and I just fed it to my floor.
We have a carnivorous floor in our apartment.
No, that's just my colorful way of saying I put it on the floor and then stepped on it with my foot.
You really did not like this book, did you?
I tried reading it. I really did.
Did you?
I read page 1, I read page 9, and I read page 99. And
thank you for the effort. I read your books.
Steve, please stop shouting.
I'll tell you what. You guys discuss. I will read it right now, and I will chime in when appropriate.
You got to speed read the thing and try to keep up with what we're saying because we don't want to give you spoilers while you're reading it.
You can skip pages 1, 9, and 99 though. You've already read those.
That'll save time.
I am the world's fastest, totally unreal reader.
You all heard that. It's on the record now.
I'm already on page 30.
Well, do we have anything else general that we want to go over before we get into
wow,
spoiler?
that was a twist.
Speaking of which, before we get into spoiler territory?
I don't know. I started to dabble in a couple things earlier, and it was already breaching the spoiler zone. So
Yeah.
we can just.
No.
Yes, you must be at page 72.
Yeah.
No, I'm on page 94 now.
Well, yeah, because it's been a few
Remember,
seconds since
skip
I said
99.
that.
Oh, I read it again.
It's a waste of time.
What? This was the first autobiography that I've actually read all the way through.
Jennifer dies?
Please.
sorry,
we haven't done
We
spoiler
haven't-
warning yet.
You're gonna make me yell
Excuse
again.
me.
Sorry,
Or
audience.
to put it another way, she doesn't.
All right, should we do some spoilers then?
It's Yennefer. Anyway, as the first autobiography that I read.
Oh, you're right. They do mention that in her eulogy.
It's pronounced
God.
eulogy.
No, it's not. Take this more seriously, Steve.
I'm sorry.
It was very inspirational, and it actually I wanted to read it, which is surprising because it seems like you all found it quite boring.
Well,
I
no,
just
I
finished it.
really liked it after I got into like chapter 3, 4-ish. It was just the first two that were a bit of a
Gotcha.
slog.
I just
Yeah.
finished it, and I have to say it is hands down the saddest ending I have ever read in my life.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, whatever your standard for sad is.
I mean, it's sadder than I Am Sam, the movie.
What about Marley and Me?
Oh, way sadder.
You think?
I haven't
yeah.
seen Marley and Me,
Okay, well,
but I've heard good things.
whatever.
It was pretty sad.
What I don't know what's up with him, but I didn't feel that way about the ending.
You clearly did not read it fast enough.
Yeah.
Oh,
if you read it fast enough, the emotion just kind of hit
Yeah,
you.
you really, having just read it, you really benefit from like binge reading it.
Really, I literally read a paragraph a day, so.
Okay. Why?
I just wanted to savor it.
Yeah. Okay. Don't.
So, should
Read
we?
faster next time, damn it.
Should we just jump into spoilers?
Let's get into spoilers.
Okay, spoiler warning going up. But just before that, let me remind you all that if you haven't read Yaksin Miami, and if you haven't sped read it just now like I did, then fast forward this podcast to the end of the episode and we'll catch you next week. Okay, spoiler warning going up.
Warning. Incoming spoiler. Warning. Incoming spoiler.
Okay, now we're into spoilers.
Jennifer dies.
Yes, Yennefer dies.
Jennifer, yes.
Well, let's work on the build up to that.
Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
through from start to finish rather than jumping around.
I agree.
I mean, can I just state that it was a big reveal when they came up with her last name? Dies. Yennefer dies. I was surprised
Yeah.
at that.
It's
Yeah.
spelled Daeiyys.
And then another Y at the end. But it's silent.
Why?
Exactly.
Why indeed? So do we want to just kind of go through his journey? Or do we want to pick and choose the parts that...
Yaksin or Yennefer's?
Yaksin. Well, Yaksin.
Not to be confused with Francis. But to be confused with
it's the same
Francis.
person.
Sheikah, get off the counter. Hey! Those pizzas are not for you. Down!
She knows.
Okay, let's hurry up and get through this stupid book so we can eat delicious pizza.
Let's stop yoking around.
Anyways,
There was no eggs in this book, by the way.
I do love
Except for the egg scene.
the egg scene, yes, but that's not until about page 71. I think it came right before.
73. I just read it.
Sorry. Didn't mean to question you. Surprising you're very confident in that, considering you lied to us about reading the entire thing just not but 5 minutes ago.
Actually, yeah. Since you read the whole thing, you want to go back and actually read the back of the book this time?
Okay. Fair enough. The year 1804. The day doesn't matter. The subject, Yaksin, Miami. Have you ever wondered? Have you ever wondered what Miami was like back in the yonder days of yore? Well, wonder no more, for the answer is here in this autobiographical fiction book. Come along on this journey.
Journey.
On this journey.
As we take you through the past, the future, the present, and back to the past, but it takes entirely place in the past.
It gets real intense.
Okay, are we both reading the back, or is it just me?
I just love that part.
Anyway, it says that. Anyway, let's get going. There it is. That's the back of the
Thank
book.
you for finally reading it, doing it justice.
So I just love that bit about it, all the tenses.
No.
Yes, it gets really IN space TENTS. It gets really intense.
Because there was that
Past, future.
No, and the tense
When he had all the actors.
when they went camping.
Yeah, TENTS. It gets really intense
Yeah.
because they're inside
in the past,
tents.
they're in tents.
Yeah.
Past tense.
Especially
present tense. I remember they had
what was
all,
it?
All
different
the
types of
tense.
tense.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure why they said past, present, future, and past again, because there's no time travel in this book.
No time travel.
They had
But he
three
had
different
dreams of the
tents.
future.
There is time
And
reference.
each tent was
Yes.
labeled past, present, future.
Yeah, and that was on the Indian reservation, right?
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Why don't we just start from the beginning and then see where that goes?
Well,
Let's see indeed.
Steve kind of covered at the beginning a little bit already. Like he journeys to, he goes around Nepal and travels, and then he meets the, goes to the monastery.
But you're skipping the part where it starts with him as a boy. He's a young boy with his brother.
It was only
and
2
they're-
paragraphs.
Yeah,
so-
well, they're very important paragraphs.
Two
because-
days. 2 days of reading.
They were long paragraphs too.
It
though,
took
so
me
give some
nearly
credit.
2 seconds. Not quite.
Nearly.
Anyway,
With his brother.
yes, his brother, where they are on the cliff, and they are fighting over their sandwich, and Yaksin accidentally pushes Craxon off the cliff face because
Yaksin and Craxon.
he grabs
They're
that.
twins.
They're identical twins. This is important later on in the book. So Yaksin and Craxon are fighting over the sandwich, and Yaksin goes to grab the sandwich. And of course, you got to remember, in the 1800s, sandwiches were very hard to come by.
Of course.
So, especially the early 1800s, bread was not sliced at that point. And I'm not a history buff. I believe it existed, but at least in this fictional real world, it does. Anyway, so he grabs at the sandwich, but then Craxon slips in his attempt to lunge away from the sandwich being taken, and he falls off the cliff face. And then Yaksin goes to save the sandwich, but the sandwich is gone. And so is Craxon. And we're led to believe that Craxon is dead. And then we skip 20 years later.
And all of that in 2 paragraphs. It was quite interesting.
You almost just read a word for word right there, actually.
Yeah.
Well, you just have it memorized still, I can imagine.
So I just read it.
Yeah. Yeah, then flash forward 20 years, as you said, to when he gets to the monastery, meets all the monks and all the Yaks.
Yeah, 20 years, and then it's like literally they describe him taking his first step on the path to the monastery.
Yeah.
And then they do that for 2 pages, just the path.
Do you know
They
you
detailed
guys
all the
describing
rocks.
the very beginning of the book. It feels like 20 years since I read those pages, I swear.
That'll happen when you read.
You really didn't like this
day.
book, did you? I didn't like this book at first either, but since I've just read it, I've come around on the fact that I know what it is now, and it's not as bad as I thought it was when I hadn't read it.
You know, they say something about judging books by their covers.
Well, it's funny you mention that because this book doesn't have a cover.
This is true. Well, that
It
was
has
from,
a back cover, but it doesn't have a front cover. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, that's just my copy. Maybe
No,
that's
no.
why I didn't read it.
It was a very short book. He tried to like make it more eco-friendly. After spending all the times with the monks and learning their minimalistic lifestyle, he enjoyed the fact that none of their books there had covers.
You'd think he would just release it in like digital ebook format, but that doesn't
200
exist.
years ago. Yeah.
No, it takes place 200 years ago. It wasn't written 200 years ago.
No, sorry, my confusion.
This book came out 5 years ago, Steve.
I know. I've actually done some research into the Yaks sanctuary, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, do we want to start their adventure or talk more about Kraxin and
What?
Yaksin?
Kraxin's gone, man.
For now, he comes back.
Hey, spoilers
We're
within
in
the spoiler.
spoiler
I know,
zone.
but we haven't gotten to that part yet.
but- yeah.
I liked that because the monks had taken vows of silence and vows of stillness, they couldn't introduce themselves, so Yaksin just like made up names for them all, and I thought it was kind of cool that he started with the
his
seven
head.
dwarves first.
And they didn't mind being called all these other names because at the end of the day they were still monks.
And also because they didn't hear any of the names because Yaksin couldn't speak them. My
Because
cat
they'd
is
also
really
taken-
enthusiastic about something.
My biggest concern was that when he was taking these yaks to the sanctuary, that they just thought he was stealing their yaks. Maybe he was, and like maybe they weren't actually endangered for all I know.
Well, they
I mean,
were-
the whole premise of the book is that they were, but
They were ready to get their yak back.
they were.
Yaks back.
Yes, they were. I did like all the various modes of transportation he took to try and get these yaks all the way to Miami.
Yeah,
Like, when they first just like hopped on the bus, there was a lot of yaks on the one bus.
yeah. And then he had
the bus from the 1800s, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
it was a horse-drawn bus.
Yeah, that's what he called it. It was a carriage, but
It was a carriage.
And then he got on the bicycle, like the old-timey bicycle with the big front wheel.
Yep.
The penny farthing.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Is that what
And-
it's called?
Yeah.
What was it called? Penny farthing?
Yeah.
Huh.
I like
learned
how
something new today.
Francis clearly didn't do all of his research when he wrote this, when he decided to set his autobiography in the 1800s. And like just little things like that, like when he called the buggy or the carriage a bus, and then he later corrects himself in the book. That, it was a little sloppy.
And he actually says one of those old-timey bikes with the big front wheel
Yeah.
in the book. I actually read that word for word.
I mean, you just told me what that bike was called, and I've already forgotten. Farthington?
Penny
the one.
farthing.
Yeah,
Penny
he
farthing?
doesn't even mention what it's called in the book.
Is it a Farthington? Did I get that right?
No, penny farthing.
Penny farthing.
Penny farthing.
What's a Farthington?
Nothing.
I don't know. Not important.
It's nothing.
Okay. Yeah, so he's on the path. He goes to the monastery. He spends 14 years with the monks.
Yep.
Eventually, he's had enough of that lifestyle. He decides he's going to take their yaks and take them to Miami. So that's where I was just filling a little bit of the details that you
Yeah.
skipped over.
Well, the monks are having trouble feeding the yaks because they're on an all-cheese diet, and they just couldn't keep up with the amount of cheese that the yaks needed.
Well, they
Plus
should have
the
just
whole
used the
vow of
yak's
stillness.
milk.
Well, they
Well,
were.
that's the problem. The yaks are lactose intolerant to yak milk.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yes.
That was the whole issue. They only
yeah.
had the yaks to make the cheese for the yaks.
Hence why they were endangered.
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought he would bring them to Miami because he heard there was some good cow milk there.
Well, at his uncle's farm.
Yes, his uncle's cow farm.
And
Yes.
in Miami, they have the local specialty alligator milk cheese. So they were able to use that as well. But
Yeah,
that's
there were a lot-
we're getting ahead of ourselves. Again.
There was a lot more, according to Francis's account. Anyway, there were a lot more dairy farms in Miami back in the 1800s because everything in the 1800s was basically dairy farms.
Yes.
Yeah, they hadn't invented surfing or turfing
Or buses.
or buses, but they had a lot of dairy farms. And he thought, I'm going to take these yaks back to Miami, which I've never been to before. And
You haven't, or Francis, or
Yaksin Francis had never been to Miami before.
Miami.
Miami.
Right? Yes.
And he had to get all those yaks onto the boat and still manage to feed them for that long trip.
He built an ark.
He built it himself. Yeah.
Very inspirational individual. He was actually very modest in the book about a lot of the stuff, considering he built an ark.
Yes.
Yeah.
He also called it a speedboat, but
we knew
he later corrected it to ark.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty interesting, the solution he used for how to feed the yaks on the boat. He just brought two women that had just given birth and used them as midwives.
I concur.
Marla and Darla.
See, this is why after reading the book, I felt it wasn't as boring as I thought it was going to be. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Well, I was curious as to why Marla and Darla couldn't just pump their breast milk. They had to actually feed the yaks at the breast, as if you will.
Well, because they liked the sensation.
Although it was
I think this
was
is a little bit of Francis fetishes.
perhaps.
Very well.
Kind of leaked into this.
Because in real life he would have just gotten them onto a plane and it would have been there in a day.
I thought you were going to say in real life he would have just went to Pornhub.
Careful. Oh, Jesus.
No, he had to explain why they could survive the long trip on the boat.
Yes.
Right. Well, I mean, at first he thought he could just walk the entire way there, and then he looked at a globe and said, no.
Yeah, well, he looked at the globe after he walked into the ocean.
Yeah.
Then came back out and said, something's not right here.
He forgot how he got to Nepal originally.
And he was kind of choked that, none of the yaks would join him in the ocean. He's like, come on, guys, we're going. And they looked at him just like, this guy's nuts.
Well, of course he forgot how he got to Nepal because he took a 20-year time leap to get there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and of course the author just had to struggle to find a way to justify that in the 1800s.
Yeah, so he just didn't. Like I said, it's only an autobiography in the sense that you can call it that.
Right.
Just like I can call a banana an orange. You can't stop me.
Could try.
But similar to how this was based on his real trip to Nepal, I could base that comparison on the fact that I have seen both a banana and an orange.
And what are your thoughts on that?
They are both fruit.
Orange, you getting a little off topic?
So on the boat, of course, they run into the Kraken.
Yeah.
Which is a little play on words because that's when Yaksin comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He comes up out of the ocean, and so Yaksin thinks he's a creature.
Yaksin doesn't. Yes.
But he's just got seaweed on him. So.
And then Yaksin pulls him aboard, but that's when Yaksin tries to kill Yaksin to take Yaksin's place.
In revenge of his sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Yaksin had carried the sandwich with him. He found it. So he brought it forward in time 20 years to Nepal.
The sandwich was nasty. It was more just the symbolism of keeping this sandwich around for so long.
I mean, it was the principle of the thing, really.
It was like his only memory of his brother.
Having just read the book, I think that it was not the same sandwich. I think it was a new sandwich made to look like the old sandwich.
And also made to look a little bit like his brother. Put little googly eyes on it.
And he did cut.
They were googly olives.
He cut the bread in the shape of Yaksin's face.
Yaksin Yaksin, come on.
Yaksin was a little obsessed.
Well, they were identical twins.
Yeah, so he just used a mirror and did it his own
I'm missing
face.
something here. Who had the sandwich? Yaksin had the sandwich.
Well, the sandwich went missing.
Yeah. Oh.
As did Yaksin.
Okay. Yeah, now I'm
So
understanding.
it could be assumed that Yaksin and the sandwich perhaps were found together, but it could also be assumed that they weren't. So it's really up in the air. I don't think that this was the important part.
It's really not essential to the story.
Did they actually say who actually won in that struggle? Like, was it Yaksin through the whole book, or did, at that point, Craxon replace him?
Are you talking about the original struggle 20 years ago?
No, I'm
that was
talking
Yaksin.
Back on the arc.
On the
on the boat.
arc.
The speedboat.
On the speedboat, yes.
The speed arc.
Arc boat.
I bet Noah wish he had one of those.
Because I honestly can't remember if they even said who won in that struggle.
They didn't, because then you spend the rest of the book not sure if it's Yaksin or Craxon.
We don't actually know who really wrote this book, do we?
No, we know it was written by Francis.
Yeah, we know who
but
wrote
we don't
it.
know if Francis is Craxon or Yaksin.
We also don't know if Francis has an identical twin brother in real life.
This is true.
We've only ever seen one of them.
Apples and autobiographies.
Yeah.
Oh, apples, sorry. Oranges. How silly of me.
Yes. So, so that altercation occurs, and then they land, but they don't land in North America. They get sidetracked and accidentally land in Antarctica.
Yep.
A tiny sidetrack.
Tiny sidetrack to the engine.
They got the fight took place in the room with the wheel, and it got knocked a bit.
Oh, the steering wheel.
Yes, the rudder wheel, the
Right.
wheel which
You still steer
controls
the rudder
yes.
wheel. It's still called a steering wheel.
Did they call it a steering wheel on the Ark?
Well, I don't know. He called it a bus, and it turned out to be a carriage. So I don't know what he was
called it a
thinking.
speedboat.
Francis
Oh, yes.
did not do much research, like you had said earlier. It was tons of historical inaccuracies and just factual inaccuracies.
Yeah. Plot full of holes.
Yeah. So speaking of holes, that's when the Swiss cheese that they had on the Ark, the Swiss yak cheese,
Right.
also went missing, which put the milkmaids,
The wet nurses.
The two maids of milking?
Yes.
Yes.
They went looking for the Swiss yak cheese as soon as they landed in Antarctica, and they didn't come back. So Yaksin had to go looking for them because he needed them to sustain the yaks.
Feed the yaks, yeah.
So they could make more yak Swiss cheese
Of course.
for the yaks. We mentioned already that they were eating yak cheese.
No,
we just didn't mention that it was Swiss yak cheese.
The yaks can't eat the yak cheese. That's the problem.
Well, yes, but that he was trying to feed them yak cheese.
Yeah.
We just didn't mention that they were Swiss cheese, and then when you talked about the holes, it just reminded me that it was the holy kind of cheese.
So much cheese. Oh my gosh.
And I mean, that's what the monks were. The monks called it holy cheese.
Yes.
It was the holy cheese.
well,
We just assumed it was Swiss, but maybe they were just punching holes in regular cheese.
To be fair, I think that Francis, again, when he wrote Swiss, he just was saying that because there was holes in the cheese, and he was trying to make the holy cheese, whole thing there, and he just thought of Swiss, and like the speedboat and the bus, he just wrote what he thought.
This is what he knew, right?
Didn't correct anything, except for when he did correct it, he didn't go back and rewrite it. He just corrected it further along in the book.
Of course. I found it quite sad.
Francis is my favorite author. Now that I've read his book.
Well, maybe we'll be able to get him on the show one day. Hopefully.
It's a
If
possibility.
he's still around. I've lost track of if he's actually alive or not. Or...
He may have an identical twin brother. We don't know.
He might.
maybe we
find
could
out.
get them both on.
We'll find out.
Anyway,
So
I'm not
they're
sure
in
we have the
Antarctica.
resources for that, but
No.
we'll see what happens. But
We'll
let's
get
go
my
back
people
to
to call
the
their
book.
people. So the two maids of milking have left the Ark in search of more cheese sources.
Well, in
in
search of
Antarctica.
the cheese that went missing.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Because while the yaks couldn't eat the cheese, they ate the cheese, which produced the milk for them to feed the yaks, so the yaks could make more cheese for the maids until they got to Miami,
Yeah.
where they would then replace it with cow milk and cow cheese.
Right.
So
This is when they brought the penguin on board, though, right?
Well,
Yeah.
the penguin stows away at the end, but let's go through the small journey to find them, which is that they were around the corner.
Yeah.
around the corner from
Yaks.
one of the big
Icebergs? Not bergs,
but like ice
Flow.
formations.
Yes, ice formations.
Well, you're going way ahead there. They were just around the corner, but they went searching all around.
Yeah.
They met up with the villagers in Antarctica and went climbing mountains. It was a whole thing.
That is true. I was just trying to skip through the boring stuff. But if you want to go over that, we can go over that.
It took me days to read it. Okay,
Okay, fair enough. Yes.
The Yaksin prepared a whole expedition
Where
with
they
the
got-
Yaks and
Where they got off the boat, they were in, let's think of the continent like a clock face. They got off at 6 o'clock, and the maids had gone slightly up to 3 o'clock, but instead they went towards 7 o'clock and went all the way around the continent to find them just at 6 o'clock, or at,
3 o'clock.
quarter to 5. They went towards 3 o'clock, but they were around quarter to 5.
Yeah. I must say, they did make it around the entire continent pretty quickly. But he used the
that's-
Yaks like a dog sled and had them just like ripping through the snow.
Right, until they got to the village.
Of course. And then they stopped at the village.
and met up with the most essential character in the book, Yennefer.
Yennefer.
That's right. That is where Yennefer comes in. Yennefer.
And you just wanted to skip over it.
Well, yes, I
Well,
did.
Obviously, because it's such a sad ending.
Don't remind me. I'm still not over it from half an hour ago.
so when he first meets Yennefer, she doesn't speak English. She only speaks Antarctican. So he
According to Francis, yes.
he's only able to get her first name out of her. He doesn't know her last name.
Well,
course.
he didn't even actually get her first name.
He just names
got
her something.
some language that he thought sounded like Yennefer.
This is
So-
also the first people he'd seen in a long time that actually spoke.
Since the yes, he had spent many
Marla
years.
and Darla were mutes. So
Well, they were monks.
Right. Marla and Darla.
Marla and Darla were milk monks.
Milk monks.
They were from the monk.
monk milkmaids.
They were from the monk place.
I think
The monastery.
Yennefer actually did speak English the whole time. It was just that Yaksin had been away from speaking people for so long that he didn't understand.
Just gibberish. to
That
him,
would make
yeah.
sense for later on when she's speaking to other people in English and Yaksin doesn't know what's going on. So that is a good point. But let's get back on track here. Try to take this a little more seriously. So Yennefer challenges Yaksin to a sled race down the hill. And if he wins, then she will help him find his maid's milking. And so they climb the rock face. Sorry, the snowy rock face. This is, again, described by Francis. And when they get to the top... Well, sorry, my cat attacked me. When they get to... We have two cats, and I hate them both.
No, you don't.
Ah, yes, Oh, she heard me. When we get... I'm sorry. We were at the...
Rock face, the race.
the top, yes, where the race starts.
Which again, terrible author. There is no actual land in Antarctica. It's all ice. But
That's not true.
Oh wait, no, that's north.
Antarctica's a continent.
Are you thinking
The Arctic.
Are you thinking of the difference between Greenland and Iceland?
Doesn't really matter. It's not important to this story.
It's not the Arctic,
one?
Dahi. It's the Antarctic.
Antarctica.
Oh, why did he go down south if he was just going to the America?
That's
Because
what we
of
said.
the fight that happened between Kraxon and Yaksin,
They pulled the steering wheel all the way around,
and nobody checked it after that.
Yeah.
See,
went
it
to 3 o'clock.
just would have made more sense to me if they had ended up going north from that because whatever.
A lot of things.
I don't like this book anymore.
Like you
I liked
said,
it. Now I don't.
Factual and historical inaccuracies. It didn't make a lot of sense.
A lot of things in this book would make more sense if they did, but they don't. So anyway, back to the Antarctica sled race. It happens.
The Yaks, they were pulled by Yaks on the sleds.
Yeah.
Well, half of the Yaks. The other half had to stay on the boat in case the boat.
To watch the boat so
Well, he
nobody
left Gertrude
stole
in
it.
charge.
Well, he was afraid. Yeah, Gertrude the Yak. He was afraid that if the boat were to get away, then at least if the Yaks were on the boat, half of the Yaks were on the boat, that they might find their way to Miami.
And save their own population.
Yes. So it was like a contingency plan.
Yeah.
But the other half of the Yaks were pulling the sled down the hill, which did not turn out very well for the Yaks. Because they just fell and slid down the hill, and then the sled, due to the momentum, passed the Yaks, and then the sled was pulling the Yaks, and unfortunately,
Which was pretty funny.
Yes, unfortunately, half of his Yaks died that day.
It was also funny.
Yennefer won the race, but she felt so bad about the Yaks that she decided to help him anyway.
It was very kind of her.
Well, she also figured that was her only way off the continent. And she took it.
Yeah.
So
she used him a little bit, but I was kind of okay with it because Yaksin's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Sorry, he's kind of a yerk.
Kind of a yerk, indeed.
well, jerk or not,
yerk
or not, he's still there. Doing his thing. He's got his dead Yaks. He's got his new friend Yennefer, and they continue around the long way towards 4:45. Although in real time it was more like 8:30. Again,
1800s.
According to Francis's descriptions. Anyway, so they circle around, and by the time it's about 4 a.m, they get to 4:45, where the milkmaids are milking each other.
Totally platonically.
Yeah, they had to just
for survival.
Juices flowing, as it were.
Just for survival, yes. So Yennefer is confused and enticed, and Yaksin grabs him and puts him on the boat. He says, "We gotta go. This is not where we're supposed to be. We got our cheese. We got our maids. We got our Yennefer, and we lost half of our Yaks, but the other half are still there." When he gets to the boat, he finds that the boat is not there. The boat has left. But he sees it, it's like not very far.
Yeah, it was like 20 feet offshore. He's like, oh, come on.
Gertrude
Get back here.
without her opposable thumbs, was not able to tie the boat up.
No. What I thought was really cool was the fact that they were going in the right direction, too.
So about time.
The Yaks knew exactly where to go. They just took their time.
Speaking of time,
Evolution.
it's time for our ad break. So this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Yakbacks. They were a thing from the 90s, and Macaulay Culkin was in one of the commercials.
It's also brought to you by Alligator Milk Cheese. Surprisingly delicious.
It's also brought to you by another cheese sponsor, the Holy Cheese of Switzerland.
It's also brought to you by the Monk's Vow of Silence.
It is also brought to you by when you open the fridge and you find that little bit of cheese in the back of the fridge that you think is Swiss, but you find out it was just cheddar with some holes in it because it's been in there too long, so you should probably throw that out. And it's also brought to you by the next one.
It's also brought to you by buses. They're not often dragged by Yaks, but sometimes they are. Sometimes known as carriages.
Yes. And speaking of carriages, we're also sponsored by carriages.org.com. If you go to www.carriages.org.com/tubcpodcast and enter in the promo code tubcpodcast, they will send you a free yak cheese. Free yak cheese.
Yum, yum.
So, back to...
I like to make yak and cheese.
That's
Pasta.
gross. That was a joke.
I missed that joke.
Yakaroni and cheese.
Yak
Yeah.
and cheese.
Yak and
I gotcha.
cheese.
I gotcha.
Or in Canada, known as Yak D.
Sorry?
We call Kraft macaroni and cheese here. We call it Kraft dinner in Canada.
Or KD.
Or KD.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's a specific Canadian thing.
Okay, yeah.
So
We call it Yakad.
Yeah, Katie.
So anyway, we get back to the speed arc that is 20 feet off the shoreline, and Yaksin or Craxon, we're not sure,
We're not
Still
sure.
don't know. Yeah.
motions for Gertrude to bring the yak back. Sorry, the
ark
the
back.
ark back, full of yaks
Right.
back, and she does.
It was
An
Yes.
unnecessary detail of the book, but Francis is an unnecessary man.
But for all the unnecessary details he puts in, he doesn't describe how Gertrude was able to turn the steering wheel without thumbs.
Well, I
We
mean,
just kind of like glossed over that.
He wasn't on the ark at the time, so
So how would he know?
it's true.
Can't
Somehow
fault him
she
for
did
that.
it.
Don't forget, this is technically an autobiography.
Technically. In the 1800s. Yeah, so then they all get back onto the ark. There's half as many yaks as they had before, but
Plus
one
2 extra
suspicious-
ones.
2 extra yaks.
Because 2 had just been born.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The ones that were left on the ark, obviously.
Yes, little Sally Sue and Mr. Moo.
Sally Sue and Mr. Moo.
Yes. Sally Sue was a male, and Mr. Moo was also a male.
But also, there was the penguin that stowed away with them now.
Right.
Percy.
Percy the penguin.
He didn't play much of a role, really, but
Nope.
he was very happy to get out of Antarctica.
He just, from that point forward, Yaksin and/or Craxon just constantly saw him out of the peripheral vision, just kind of looking at him.
Just constantly, like, peeking around corners
He
and
followed
stuff.
Very
him.
menacing.
When we get to Miami, we'll get to that, but he followed, like, he was just always just there, just in view. Speaking of just in view,
Perfect time to introduce him.
yes, Justin View. That is who greets Yaksin / Craxon when they arrive in Miami, because they just arrived in Miami
On the ark.
on the ark, and they get off, and Justin View is there to say hello, welcome to Miami. Miami. Welcome to Miami, mi amor, because he was French. That's all.
That's all he
Francis
did.
said about
Yeah.
it.
No, that was the entirety of that character. He never
He's never
appeared
mentioned again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then
I don't even know why they bothered naming him.
Yaksin continues journeying towards his uncle Sheepson's farm in Miami.
Sheepson, of course, was still in the monastery because he did not accompany Yaksin on the trip. Although he did accompany Yaksin to the monastery originally.
Sheepson's the uncle that he was journeying back to in Miami. He never went with him.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said.
Okay, just making sure.
In fact, Sheepson had no idea that Yaksin was coming with this like fleet of yaks to bring to his farm.
And
Yes.
when they arrive at the farm, it's at this point that we start getting little hints that Yennefer isn't feeling too hot, and she may have gotten
Well, she was feeling too hot because she's from Antarctica.
yeah.
Yes, and
Play on words.
Anything hotter than her normal climate just immediately made her come down with a case of death.
Well, she didn't just up and die.
Near death. No, but like it was
was
a case of death in that she would die.
Yeah, she was more susceptible to some
Death.
diseases that Yaksin was perfectly fine with. Like his immune system was perfectly fine, but she ended up getting the yak flu from being on the boat with all the yaks.
Yeah, and all the yak milk cheese.
And the heat of
Exactly.
the yaks
Exactly.
and scurvy. She also had scurvy.
Yes,
Yes.
because there's no
Vitamin
oranges,
C.
no bananas,
no apples.
No autobiographies. Just kidding. This is an autobiography. Or
Yes, Steve.
So they go to Sheepson and they hope that he can maybe have something on the farm that can help them.
Yes, but he doesn't.
So
So they go
Yennefer-
to the neighbor's farm, and they do.
Very fortunate.
But
It's goat cheese. That's the secret.
it's fortified
medicine.
goat. It's goat cheese fortified with pure love.
And pine nuts.
Love and pine nuts. And that is what cures her. But unfortunately, and this is where we get to the saddest thing ever. Do you guys want to talk about it, or should I just recap it since I just read it?
Well, you did just read it, and I think your reaction to it was so guttural that I think you need to just go for it.
Well,
Okay.
it starts with the wedding, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I almost forgot that part, but thankfully you reminded me.
Well, knowing that Yennefer had such limited time left.
Yes, so her plan was to marry Yaksin, because that was the only man she had ever met, except for Justin View, but he was not around anymore.
And Sheepson.
he was just out of view.
Well, yes.
Jesus.
And she
No,
could
not Jesus, Justin.
It was actually pronounced Yustin, actually.
and she couldn't marry Percy because he was a penguin, and she had already tried that.
And Sheepson was already married.
Well, she never
to his
met.
work.
She actually didn't see Sheepson because she stayed outside of the farmhouse when they went in looking for the cure. Anyway, so her plan is she's going to marry Yaksin. She doesn't ask him; she just decides this. But before she takes the cheese which will cure her, she wants to be married in her natural state before she spends the rest of her life in her enhanced state. So
Yennefer 2.0.
In the state of Miami. Or Florida, sorry.
yes,
No, in the 1800s, Miami was its own state. They hadn't.
You're correct. I'm sorry.
at least
incorporated.
according to Francis. But I digress. You guys are making a mockery of this very sad moment. If you would let me continue.
Colin?
Okay. So she grabs Yaksin. She says, and I'll act it out the way I saw it in my head. Come with me, Yaksin. I want to see you at your best before I'm no longer at my worst. And Yaksin says, huh? And then she grabs him. She had heard about shotgun weddings, but she didn't have a shotgun because it was the 1800s. But like the early 1800s.
And Francis didn't know that they existed back then.
So she had to make do with a stick. So she grabbed the stick and she poked it real hard into Yaksin's back and said, I take you. And it was done. And now they were married. And Yaksin was very excited to copulate the wedding. Sorry, consummate. Consummate the wedding. Anyway, but Yennefer, in her excitement and her inappropriateness,
And her weakness from the
yeah, she forgot
yak
to take the
disease.
cheese. Well, she was going to take the cheese, but she thought her first time losing her virginity, she wanted it to be in her natural state. Because she didn't think Yaksin could handle her enhanced state.
And then she thought the second time she'd lose her virginity would be better on the enhanced.
Yes. So as they strip down to their skin, but not past that point, they embrace each other, and it is the sweetest moment because neither of them had ever held another naked person other than a yak or a penguin. And
Which aren't people.
yes.
Percy the penguin was a person. Don't you dare fight me on
Speaking
this.
of
No,
which,
you're thinking of Person the
Speaking of
penguin.
which-
They left him behind in Antarctica.
yes, Percy's brother Person, but Percy was there in the barn, just
The natural state of the barn.
just in view. However,
Justin View wasn't there.
Yustin.
No, Justin View was not there, but Percy was there just in view.
Okay.
Well, he was the best man, wasn't he?
He was just always there.
He was the best bird.
I guess I just thought that because he looked like it, being that he was in a tuxedo.
Can I continue to
No.
the sad part?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm getting mixed messages.
I think someone else should pick this up from you.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
I'm too close to the source
Do you think?
because I just read it. I would like to hear your perspective paragraph by paragraph.
Okay, I'll go day by day because it was.
Yes, please do.
Can I narrate your days for you? Day 1.
So they looked at each other deep in each other's eyes and felt true love.
Day 2.
They then.
These are very short paragraphs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not reading the whole paragraph. I'm just summarizing them.
Oh.
I thought this was like the actual days that it took place in.
No,
Like
this
a
is-
whole day dedicated
No, this is
to love.
him reading
this is
it
me
one day at a
reading it.
time. But this is the summary of the
each
paragraph.
paragraph. The
paragraph,
that he read
right.
one
This
day.
is all
3.
very confusing.
No, day 2.
Day
Okay,
2.
still day 2.
Yeah, I haven't even started yet. Okay, anyway, so they hold each other by the hand. Yeah. And
Sorry, whose hand?
Yennefer
Oh,
and
both of their hands.
yeah,
I
each
see.
other's hands. They hold each other's hands
Okay.
They each hold one hand.
of each other.
Yes.
Okay. What are they doing with their other hands?
High-fiving.
We'll get there.
Sorry.
I think
the
Steve
gun.
just spoiled it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Day 3.
Thank you. They feel a tingle in their fingertips as something seems to crawl from one to another.
Day 4.
Yennefer starts to feel lightheaded and weak.
Day 5.
Yennefer dies. That was
Is
that was
her
it.
name Yennefer
Yeah,
dies.
but there was
Yeah.
so
She
okay.
whispers
but
it to him.
you skipped over all the really detail that made
They
it
were
so
long
sad.
paragraphs. They were long paragraphs.
Yes, Yennefer, but they go into Yennefer from Yennefer's perspective, where she had finally found the place that she belonged, and also
Well, that's what I said.
yes, but also she was really, really thinking hard about not dying.
Yeah, she thought mind over matter.
I mean, it was implied in
She
my
thought-
summary, to be honest.
She thought,
but all right.
I'm finally happy. I don't want to die. If I die, I won't be happy. And then in her thought of death and happiness, she forgot to eat the cheese because Yaksin took too long to finish. And then she died.
Typical virgin
And that's why
behavior.
it's very sad. Because not only did Yennefer die, she died without purpose. And that is the saddest kind of death you can have. And Jesus
was-
Christ, Caitlin, if you make a joke about or a joke about dying without purpose,
No, I was just gonna say Purpose was Percy and Person's other brother, and they had left him in Antarctica as well. It was-
yes, she
he was-
also
he
died
was
without
Yennefer's pet.
the literal purpose, and a porpoise, because Purpose was their porpoise brother.
It was an adopted family, I believe, right?
Yes, but she died without fulfilling the one thing she always wanted to do, which was to love. And when she was right there, grasping very violently at it, towards it,
I thought you were going to say sensually, but you went for violently.
yes, well, she really wanted it.
Fair enough.
She didn't get it because she wanted to stay pure, and she did. She stayed pure dead. And it was
Very
very
sad.
sad.
And it was beautiful imagery right after her death as well. The flying birds through the air. I think one of them was Percy flying through the air back to Antarctica. It was a beautiful image. He went back to send the message to Purpose.
Yes, and that's when we find out that Percy was, in fact, a pigeon.
Not a penguin at all.
No,
He was just a pigeon wearing a tuxedo. And-
Percy the pigeon.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was raised by penguins.
yeah, so he walked
So-
like a penguin, and he was wearing a tuxedo. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where the story ends, at Yennefer's death. There's no
Very
more.
abrupt.
But what was interesting, not about that, but this yak sanctuary is still in effect, and they're taking donations online all the time. And you can actually support the Yaks in Miami, now pronounced Miami. But this yak farm has been going for a long time now.
Yes, and the readers / listeners / only listeners, because this is not a written podcast in any sense. Where was I? Yes, they can look that up on their own time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're not going to provide a link to that.
No, I don't have it off the top of my head.
I don't like Yaks anyway.
We
I
can
also
just
You
mention-
don't like yaks? What's wrong with you?
Don't talk back.
Oh, okay.
Guys, reacts.
Oh, come on.
You were gonna say something, Kate?
Yeah, they can look up the farm. It's just called Yaktually, and if you want to know more about it.
Yes, that's actually correct. I felt a little also it was sad and that they never finished the journey.
Story-wise,
it just
yeah.
ended at Yennefer's death.
I know that they did complete the journey, but he never wrote about the last little bit.
We don't know if the Yaks survived or anything of that. We never found out if Yaksin or Kraxin, who it was, or if Kraxin died, or if it was Yaksin, or what happened.
Well, I think what's going to happen is he's going to be very unique and actually have a sequel to an autobiography.
Perhaps.
I think that's what's going to happen.
We just have to wait a few more years.
have to wait and see.
Yeah.
That's true. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Covered the entirety of the book and delved into
Thank you all for listening to the Totally Unreal Book Club podcast, our weekly review podcast in association with the Voices of Anarchy, of which everyone here is also a member. You can check us out at www.voicesofanarchy.com or on Twitter at VoicesAnarchy. You can find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at tubcpodcast. That's TUBC podcast. And you can literally just find us everywhere else at tubcpodcast. I want to thank once again the panel this week, and you can follow each of us on our personal Twitters at
Caitlionroar.
H&F official.
Steve Marriott.
and willjwood. Thank you all once again, and we'll see you next week.
Actually.
Beautiful.